Thank you for joining Cancer Support Community Atlanta for this program. Please visit our website, cscatlanta.org, for a complete list of live and recorded events. We invite you to sign up for our newsletter to stay connected to all future programs.
I am the Oncology Nutrition Coordinator for a few more hours here at Northside Hospital, and these presentations tend to be a little bit more generic than one-on-one counseling. So if you are a patient within the Cancer Institute and you have one-on-one questions that you want to ask, or maybe you need something that's more tailored to yourself or your situation, we have about 18 oncology dietitians throughout the system. We are happy to help get you connected to them to be able to answer those things for you so they can review your medical record, what treatments you've been on, and that kind of thing to give you better, more tailored information. So please keep that in mind as we go through. But like Lauren said, you can throw your questions in the chat box, and at the end we'll get those answered, or at the end you're welcome to just ask those as we get to the end for the Q&As. But facts on fiber is one of my most favorite topics, not necessarily facts, but the fiber part. So we're going to highlight today the benefits of fiber, the different types of fiber, what our sources of fiber are, how much fiber is recommended, and then fiber supplements if you're having a difficult time getting in enough fiber. So fiber defined is just, it's found mainly in our fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and our legumes like our beans and nuts and seeds. And dietary fiber includes parts of the plants that our bodies cannot digest or absorb. So it really creates that roughage or the bulk that makes up our bowel movements. And fiber, again, isn't digested by our body. It passes relatively intact through your stomach, your small intestine, and your colon. And so if you've been to any of our presentations before, you know we talk a lot about plant-based diets and how important those are. And they're important for a number of reasons, but fiber is really close to the top of the most beneficial things that you're getting out of eating a more plant-based diet. And hopefully after today's presentation, you will understand a little bit more about why. So our benefits of fiber, eating more fiber, we hear this all the time, but why do we need to do it? So fiber is well known for relieving constipation. So if you have slower moving bowels and you tend to have more constipation, but there are other benefits as well. So fiber can actually help us to maintain a healthy weight, and then it can also lower our risk of diabetes, heart disease, and some types of cancers. So it does not just have to do with our bowel movements. So dietary fiber helps to protect us against cancer, specifically colorectal cancer, but I think in the coming years, we'll see more and more information coming out about how fiber interacts and helps to be beneficial for our microbiomes and our immune systems. So this is an evolving topic that you'll see grow throughout the next several decades, I think. But our non-starchy vegetables and fruits may also protect against cancers of the mouth, pharynx, larynx, our esophagus, colon, rectal, and stomach cancers. So again, part of that plant-based diet, making sure we have a lot of vegetables and fruits going on in there, have been linked to lowering the risk of those cancers. Sorry. The amount of soluble and insoluble fibers vary in different plant foods. And so we also always talk about making sure that we have a wide variety of high fiber foods for the best health benefits. So this comes down to when people ask, what's the highest fiber food or what's the best vegetable to eat? There's not ever a best one out there. It's all about that variety and making sure you're incorporating a variety of different foods and colors and things to make sure you're getting the benefits of both soluble and insoluble fibers. And we'll dive into that later in the presentation. So the types of fiber, soluble, we just mentioned that one. This one dissolves in water to form a gel-like material. So a really good example, if you've ever had either oatmeal or even like a chia seed. A chia seed is a really good observation of this. So if you've ever put chia seeds like in yogurt or maybe in your smoothie, and you start to see the little gel circle that forms around it, that's what it's doing on the inside of your body too. And so it's helping to collect things as it goes through your intestines, like things get stuck in there, and it helps pull things that we don't want in our bodies out. So the soluble fiber really helps to lower our blood cholesterol, and also it helps to control our glucose levels. So if you have diabetes or just are prone to having higher blood sugars or even low blood sugars, this really helps to stabilize those blood sugars, so you're not seeing those spikes of ups and downs for you. And I like to throw out the cholesterol piece because I have high cholesterol myself. And when I first got diagnosed, my total cholesterol was 244. And so I really started focusing on fiber and making sure I was getting the recommended amount on a daily basis to see if that would help lower my cholesterol before having to consider going on medications. And it dropped it down to, I think it was either 208 or like I was right on the border of high, and high is 200. So I think it was 208. So with just adding that fiber in and then also not eating fast food, of course, helped to drop my cholesterol, close to 40 points, which is crazy. So the soluble fibers, those are going to be found in your oats, your peas, beans, apples, citrus fruits, carrots, barley, and psyllium. Pears are also included in here as well. So a nice variety of these foods help to give us some of that soluble fiber. So that's why a lot of people, when they're told they have high cholesterol or maybe they're trying to eat heart healthy, they do a lot of oatmeal. And that's kind of where this comes from. It's the soluble fiber that are in those oats. If you don't like oats, you don't have to eat oats. There's all kinds of other options on here. But this is just a small list of where this fiber can be found. And then our insoluble fiber, this is the fiber that our GI tract and our body really can't break down. So this helps to promote the movement of material through our GI system, and it also helps to increase our stool bulk. So it makes it bigger and more formed, and then that helps to keep things moving. So for those who are struggling with constipation or irregular bowel movements, can benefit from this type of fiber. And so insoluble fiber is much more common, I would say, than soluble fiber, but our whole wheat flours, our wheat bran, nuts, beans, and really most of your vegetables are going to be this insoluble fiber. So whether it's broccoli, asparagus, your summer squashes in right now, spaghetti squashes, tomatoes, all kinds of vegetables are going to have your insoluble fiber for you. So higher fiber diet benefits that helps to normalize bowel movements. So there's not a specific number of bowel movements that you necessarily have to have per day or per week. That's really up to like you and who you are and then what your doctor has told you. So some people say they like to have 3 bowel movements a day. Some people are just tickled when they have 1 bowel movement. Some people are like, I only have, 2 or 3 bowel movements in a week. And so everybody's a little bit different on what normal looks like for you. So that's more of like a doctor discussion on how often you should be going and that kind of thing, or maybe one of those one-on-one conversations with a dietitian. But it helps to maintain bowel health. So we want to keep our GI tract linings healthy. Again, microbiome is a hot topic. Hopefully that will get discussed in the coming months, but that is where a lot of our immune system comes from, and having healthy bowels helps keep that microbiome up and running and keeps our immune system doing well. It can help lower our cholesterol levels. We already talked about that. Helping control our blood sugar levels. So fiber helps to slow digestion down. So our body's not absorbing things quickly and shooting our blood sugars up. It's more of like a steady breakdown and a nice absorption of our body. And so that helps to stabilize those blood sugars. It can also aid in helping to achieve a healthy weight. So the more fiber we're eating, we tend to stay fuller longer because, again, the digestion is slowed and you just get to feel full for longer. And those foods also typically have lower calories than other foods do. So if you're eating more protein or different kinds of fats and things, those have more calories than our fiber vegetables, fruits. And then in turn, all of that is going to help us to live longer. So normalizing our bowel movements, let's dig into this a little bit. Dietary fiber helps to increase the weight and the size of our stool, and it also helps to soften our stool so it's not as hard to pass. A bulky stool is easier to pass, which decreases our chances of having that constipation. And then if you're having loose or watery stools, then fiber could also help to solidify the stool because it helps to absorb the water and adds bulk to the stool. So if you are having more diarrhea or those loose watery stools, then adding more of that soluble fiber like the oatmeal and the apples and the pears and the peas, those foods help to draw out some of that water that happens in our bowel and gives that stool a chance to form. So the high fiber diet may also lower your risk for developing hemorrhoids and small pouches in our colon. And when those little pouches form, things can get stuck in there and they can become inflamed, and that's just very uncomfortable. And sometimes you have to, you do have to go see a doctor. Sometimes you have to have surgery to help with that. So we want to try to avoid that the best that we can. And then studies have shown that a high fiber diet likely lowers the risk of colorectal cancer. So if that's something that runs in the family, that is a good idea to help lower your risk of developing that. And then some fiber is actually fermented in our colon, and researchers are showing that studies how this, or they're still researching how it helps to prevent diseases of the colon. But again, that comes back to some of that microbiome stuff that's still coming out and is a hot topic for now. So it'll be interesting to see how the research develops through the next several years and decades to see how that is providing great benefits for our entire body, but specifically our colon. Lowering cholesterol levels. So soluble fiber may help lower total blood cholesterol levels by lowering the LDL, which is our bad cholesterol. So again, I gave you my story here, and I've heard tons of other stories about similar things. So this is quite helpful if you are looking to lower your cholesterol, or you've been told to lower your cholesterol and you're not sure what to do. And again, that soluble fiber is more in your beans, oats, flax seeds, and oat bran. And then studies also show that high fiber foods may also reduce our blood pressure and then also the inflammation that can be going on in our body. So again, win-wins all around for our heart health. And then helping to control our blood sugar levels. So for people who have diabetes, fiber, mostly the soluble fiber, can slow that absorption of sugar. So we talked about that, and this helps to improve our blood sugar levels. But a healthy diet that includes insoluble fiber may also reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. So if, again, type 2 diabetes runs in your family and you have concerns about developing diabetes, adding this fiber in now is a great way to help reduce your risk for that as well. And then our healthy weight. So I love this picture that's on here. It's an example of what 500 calories looks like. And we talked about this, about how eating more fiber helps you feel fuller for longer. So it typically takes longer to eat. I mean, there's a lot of chewing involved if you're eating a lot of fiber. So that slows you down with your meal time, but then also your stomach and your intestines take longer to digest these foods. So usually they're lower in calories than fats and other processed carbs. And so you can see in the stomach here, this is just like an example of 500 calories based off of like the food type. So if you start on the far right, your entire stomach is going to be full at 500 calories with all the different fruits and vegetables. If you're doing just protein foods, you know, that's still a pretty good amount of volume to help keep you feeling fuller longer. But when you get into more of like our cakes, cookies, crackers, chips, those like more processed carbohydrates, they have more calories in them. So even if you eat 500 calories, you're going to have significantly less than if you were eating fruits and vegetables. And then if you are only eating fats, which nobody just eats fats and nobody just eats processed carbs. So this is just to give you an example, that's not going to keep you feeling very full for very long. So it's about adding in those fruits and vegetables to help take up that volume in our stomach to make us feel full longer. And in turn, we'll eat less throughout the day because of that. So our calories will be less overall, which will help with achieving that healthy weight. That's not like a short-term fix. This is like a lifelong journey. We always promote that here. It's going to take a while to get to where you want to be, but that's okay. We want to do it the healthy way. And then helping you live longer. So studies suggest that increasing your dietary fiber intake, especially cereal fibers, is associated with reduced risk of dying from cardiovascular disease and all cancers. So cereal fibers are found in the bran part of whole grains. So this is just a breakdown of what a grain looks like. So the bran is the outside layer of the wheat grain. So when we tell people to eat whole grains most of the time instead of the more processed grains, this is an example of why you're being told to do that. So if you don't love, whole wheat crackers, but you like whole grains in other forms, like oatmeal is a whole grain. It's the whole oat that's going to be there. But if you get something like an instant oatmeal, that might be more broken down. And so you might lose that bran because they want it to be able to cook faster and be ready faster and have that, less fibery type taste to it. But over time, if you give your taste buds enough time to adjust, most people don't tend to have issues with accepting the whole wheat versions of things or the whole grain versions of things. And it's very popular right now to have things labeled as whole grains on the front or whole wheat. So it makes it a little bit easier for shopping, but just something to be mindful of. And then our fiber recommendations based off of gender and then also off of our age. So males are anywhere from 30 to 38 grams. So if you're 50 or younger, 38 grams per day. And if you're 51 plus, you want 30 grams of fiber per day. And for females, it's 25 grams per day if you're 50 years old or younger. And then it drops down to 21 grams per day if you're 51 or over. And this recommendation comes from the Institute of Medicine. And I don't know if you have ever tracked how much fiber that you consume, but the average American gets about 10 to 15 grams of fiber per day. And when I started on my cholesterol journey, I tracked what I was eating or like some of my favorite meals to see how much fiber I was consuming. And I was very upset to find out that I was average and I was only getting about 12 grams of fiber per day. So it does take some planning and some education of yourself and some adjusting of recipes for most people to get up to these recommendations of the 25 to 38 grams. But it can be done, and it's okay if you're not perfect every day. It's just moving towards that spectrum, the higher end, so you know that you're keeping your bowels good and healthy. And then the American Institute for Cancer Research recommends 90 grams per day of whole grains. So that's about 3 servings of whole grains. So that could be a cup of oatmeal. It could have like your whole grain bread with a sandwich at lunchtime. Maybe you do some brown rice with your dinner and you've got your 3 servings of those whole grains done. All right, so fiber sources. If you aren't getting enough fiber each day, you may need to boost your intake with these foods. So again, looking at what grains you're already eating, or are you eating them at all? A lot of people cut out carbohydrates when they want to lose weight or are trying to be healthy, and that's not necessary. We want to focus on whole grains and better grains and really managing the portion sizes of those. So we don't want to overdo our grains necessarily, but we don't have to cut them out to see weight loss. Fruits, it's the summer. We've got all kinds of great fruits going on here in the South. So that's a great way to get more fiber. Any kind of vegetables. So we have several recordings on the CSC Atlanta website about ways to increase fruits and vegetables, why they're important, how to get to more of a plant-based diet, which is not a vegetarian or vegan diet. It's just about focusing on these foods. But you do have to incorporate these foods into your diet if you want to make it to that 25 to 38 grams of fiber every day. Beans, peas, and other legumes, those are an excellent way to add in fiber pretty quickly. And a lot of people can do this in dishes that they're already eating. Like if you like soups or chilies, just adding in some extra beans, having them as side items on some of your meals are very helpful. Nuts and seeds are also a great way. So if you're having a snack of, say, some fruit, you can always grab a handful of nuts to make it a more balanced snack, but that way you're getting fiber in both of the foods that you're eating. So you might have an apple with some peanuts, or some people like seeds or to snack on different seeds. I like chia seeds in my smoothie just to help boost up the extra fiber for the day. And then any refined or processed foods, such as your white breads and pastas and non-whole grain cereals, tend to be lower in fiber. So if you're eating those foods, it's not necessarily that you have to get rid of them, but could you swap them out for more whole grain versions? And if you're like, Kristin, no, I want my white bread, then you just have to figure out different ways to do it in your diet, which is fine. There are a lot of different pastas that are coming out that are made by chickpeas and other grains that are out there, or other legumes. So if you guys go to the upcoming cooking demo, that's going to be a fun way to see what all you can do with chickpeas. And they actually taste really good at the store. I've switched over to that for any of my pasta dishes. So don't be afraid to try some of those smaller items just to see if you like the taste of them, and always try them at least twice to give your taste buds some time to adjust to see if you can incorporate those. And then the grain refining process removes that outer coat, the bran from the grain. So that's why those recommendations come from trying to stay away or limit these foods and prioritizing the whole grain products, because we want to have that bran incorporated in whatever you're eating to get those health benefits out of it. So food versus supplements, whole foods rather than fiber supplements are generally better. Fiber supplements don't provide a variety of fibers, the vitamins and minerals, and the other beneficial nutrients that come from eating these fruits and vegetables and whole grains. So being mindful of that is really important. And then there are some foods that have added fiber. Usually they're labeled as an inulin or a chicory root in the ingredients list. And for some people, that produces like a lot of gas and a lot of abdominal discomfort after eating those foods, because they only have that one fiber that's in there. And if you're eating like a fruit or a vegetable, there's a lot of different nutrients that are in there to help our body digest that kind of thing. So you still might need to have a fiber supplement if the dietary changes aren't sufficient to help with whatever condition you're trying to work on. So if you have like irritable bowel syndrome, or if you do struggle with constipation or diarrhea, it's not to say that fiber supplements don't have a place to help with that. It's just sometimes people overdo it. I had a friend recently reach out and ask me if 3 scoops of fiber supplement was too much, because she accidentally got carried away with a smoothie one morning. And I was like, your stomach's going to tell you. And she was like, it's not going well. So more is not always better at the same meal. Like your body needs time to digest this stuff and to process it and get it out. And then if you are doing your fiber supplements, just being again, mindful of how much you're using and not trying to get all 25 grams in at one meal, because you're definitely going to cause yourself some distress there. So some tips for boosting intake. You've got to start the day with fiber. If you've only got 3 or 4 meals to get all this fiber in, then you've really got to start with your breakfast meal. So try a high fiber breakfast cereals, 5 grams or more of fiber per serving. There are cereals that have whole grain, bran, or fiber in the name are usually a pretty good place to start. And then adding a few tablespoons of wheat bran to your favorite cereal if you don't like the other cereals that are listed. You can do oatmeal, like I mentioned earlier. You can add in some fruits and some nuts to add even more fiber to it. I love to have smoothies in the morning, and I add in different berries and my chia seeds and a half of a frozen banana to get soluble and insoluble fibers going on. I think I'm up to like 11 grams in my smoothie for the morning time. So yes, definitely starting the day. If you have different baked goods, you can actually substitute whole grain flour for half or all of the white flour when baking. If you've never tried it like all the way, maybe start with a half and see how you like it and how it tastes, and make sure things aren't too different for you. But you can also try adding in like different crushed bran cereals, unprocessed wheat bran, or uncooked oats to muffins, cookies, and cakes. So that's an interesting way to get different things in if you like to have baked goods throughout the week. Switching to whole grains. So again, half of your grain should be whole grains. So you want to shoot for at least 3 servings per day coming from whole grains. So look at grain products where the first ingredient listed on the food label at the bottom is whole wheat flour, or another whole grain. So it might say whole grain, it might say whole barley, whole oat, but you want that word whole to be the very first ingredient, and that's going to indicate to you that that is the heaviest product that is going to be in that food. So that's going to be a good option for your whole grains. And then shoot for 2 grams of dietary fiber per serving for the whole grains. So trying out different brown rice, wild rice, barley, whole wheat pasta. Like I said, they've got those chickpea pastas that have a lot of fiber and protein in them now. And then bulgur wheat are good options as well. Legumes, untapped potential here. And I think if Chef Kip hasn't already done her bean cooking demo, I'm sure it's on the docket coming up, because she apparently is a member of a bean club and loves beans. So this will be a great way of figuring out different ways to cook or prepare beans, peas, lentils, and those are going to be excellent sources of fiber for us. Again, adding kidney beans to canned soups or throwing them on a green salad are an easy way to do things. Making nachos with refried black beans, lots of veggies, and whole wheat tortilla chips and salsa is another way to just prioritize our fiber and eat some delicious food. And then our fruits and vegetables, it's 5+ servings per day. So fruits and veggies are rich in fiber, and they also have those vitamins and minerals that help to protect us against cancer and help to reduce our cancer risk. So those are a helpful way to boost your fiber intake. And then if you're a snacker, make your snacks count. So having fresh fruits on hand, you don't want to just eat fruit by itself, add some kind of a protein or a healthy fat to it. So grabbing a handful of nuts or dipping your apple in peanut butter can be a helpful way to make it a more balanced snack, but to also give you fiber in both of those food options. Your raw veggies, those are easy to cut up and snack on if you're working or at home. And then low-fat popcorn is also a whole grain. So sometimes people forget about that, but it pops right out of a kernel and you're eating the whole thing. So that's a great option. Whole grain crackers are another great option. And then, like I said, a handful of nuts or dried fruit can help to add in some fiber for you there as well. So your next steps, adding too much fiber too quickly can promote GI gas, abdominal bloating, and cramping. So you really have to do this slowly over several weeks. So if you track today and tomorrow how much fiber you're eating and you're like, ooh, I'm only getting 10 grams of fiber, you don't want to go from 10 to 25 grams tomorrow. You want to just add in a couple more grams for a few days and then bump it up from there. So this will allow your bacteria that's in your gut to adjust to this change, and that will also just help your body be able to digest these things easier for you, so you're not having all this GI stress. And then make sure you're drinking plenty of water. So our fiber works best when it absorbs water. So it will help to make your stool soft and bulky. If you aren't drinking a lot of water, it can become very dried out, and that can make the constipation worse. So making sure you're getting plenty of fluids as you're increasing your fiber is going to be really important. And I did want to point out, I can't remember. I like for meals, like if you're having full meals, like 3 meals per day, 5 to 15 grams of fiber per meal is what you should shoot for. So if you have one meal that's closer to 15, your other ones throughout the day don't need to also be 15. Like you don't need 45 grams of fiber necessarily. So that's a good gauge of how well your meal is on fiber. So are you always going to hit 5 to 15? Probably not, but that's just a good rule of thumb to give you some wiggle room in there, and to give you an idea of what a good balanced meal might look like.
Thank you for joining Cancer Support Community Atlanta for this program. If you're interested in other live or recorded programs, please visit the online program tab of our website, cscatlanta.org, or follow us on Facebook. We'll be sharing additional information on upcoming programs.